Horus Heresy has a big problem and no one is talking about it. The game has suddenly been thrust into the limelight. Ever since Adepticon, it's all anyone can talk about, barring a few notable exceptions. And Games Workshop seem to be really pushing the boat out here to make the game more casual friendly. We've got resin lines moving to plastic and all sorts of nostalgic cheer. The forever loved beaky marines are now moving over to plastic. This is all good stuff. I like this. The game is being opened up to a wider audience, and that's better for the game. And yet, there is something that will absolutely drive away new players and render all of this redundant. Because who is going to play Horus Heresy? Who are the target market? Is it entirely new players to tabletop? Is it existing Warhammer 40k players who fancy a little bit of a change but still want to remain within the GW ecosystem? Or is it lore fans, people who want to play out the books on the tabletop? I mean, I'll say this much, the game is definitely designed for someone who knows a little bit about the lore. At least to some extent. But whoever the target market is, there is a huge stop sign in the way. And it stopped me, someone who is a bit of a stranger to Horus Heresy. I mean, I know that Horus and the Emperor get into a 1v1 scrap at some stage, spoilers, and that Alanius Pius was updated so that his character was ruined. But aside from that, I don't know much else. I don't know who fought who, at what stages. I couldn't give you the timeline of the Horus Heresy. The specifics are vague and foggy to me, picked up from half-remembered conversations. I don't know much Horus Heresy lore. However, I do know about the Primarchs. Everybody knows about the Primarchs. If you are even vaguely adjacent to Warhammer, you know about the Primarchs. And those Primarchs are a huge get off the hype train moment for Horus Heresy. And here's why. Let me tell you my story. Oh, Horus Heresy is coming out. Maybe I'll buy some miniatures for the Horus Heresy game. Oh, what will I buy? Well, a Primarch probably, I suppose. They're pretty important in the setting. Oh God! Oh sweet Jesus! Yes, that's right, Sanguinius is $152! Just a payday loan away! Do those guys still offer cash for gold? Is that still a thing? I don't watch adverts anymore. Why is nobody talking about this? Am I the only one who's noticed how absolutely buck wild the pricing of these models are? As someone who would be kinda interested in this game, the price tag immediately scares me off. And I know the context. I know that Forge World is more expensive, and I know that Games Workshop kind of overcharge for their models. And I know that miniatures, generally speaking, are kind of expensive at times. But imagine if all I had done was read the books. Right? Think about it. I just enjoy the books, and now I've heard that Games Workshop have just launched this new tabletop game that allows me to recreate the battles that before this I've only played out in my imagination. And I'm sorry, but the first thing I'm going to want to buy is not the Mark IV armor, even if they are in plastic and look kind of cute. The first thing I'm going to want is a Primarch, the Primarch of my chosen chapter, my favorite character from the stories. And yeah, that will be the last thing I want to buy for this game. And for the record, generally speaking, I'm not a huge fan of big centerpiece models. It wouldn't usually be my first inclination to buy something like this, but for Horus Heresy, it just made sense, you know? What's the point in it if not for the Primarchs, for the setting? And I know there are big fans of Horus Heresy screaming at the monitors right now, saying there's a lot more to this setting than just a couple of Primarchs. But as someone on the outside, all I see are Primarchs and weird Space Marine armor. And the price of Primarchs is not going to convince me to get into this game at all. They range from $114 to $152 for a single model. And there's seemingly no rhyme or reason for why they cost what they do, except for maybe popularity. And yes, they are made of resin, and they do come with large, elaborate diorama bases. Sometimes, at least. I mean, Sanguinius doesn't, and he's one of the most expensive ones. And they do frequently have dynamic and interesting poses, except for the few that don't. And yes, they are Forge World models. Forge World charges a premium. In 2007, they were without a doubt one of the best miniature manufacturers in the world. At least in terms of quality of sculpts. The resin allowed for extremely sharp detail, especially compared to the hard plastic models that you could get at the time. And the result was that the models were beautiful. I always wanted to own a Death Korps of Krieg army. Of course, to buy that, I would have to have my parents sell their house. And they were against that idea, I don't know. And though models sold by Forge World were pretty and awesome to look at, I only ever got to look at them on a monitor screen. If something was on Forge World, I could not afford it. But at least the quality was there. We all knew that the models were brilliant. And if we flash forward to today, the present time, that's not really the case anymore. Forge World is still extremely expensive, but are they much better than the hard plastic that Games Workshop are putting out these days? I actually don't think so. Games Workshop have come a long way since 2007. A really long, scary way. The details of their hard plastic miniatures have come along leaps and bounds. To be honest, Forge World can't really claim to be on a different tier anymore. The price difference is no longer justifiable, even for large dioramas that are seemingly created more for display than for gaming. And I've been critical of these large diorama models in the past, but I do think there is a place for them, especially for single, larger-than-life characters. And maybe they should cost a little bit of a premium. There's certainly a lot more material used in them than a standard character model, at least when compared to a standard Space Marine Lieutenant. But even with that, there are other companies in the miniature space selling comparable products at much cheaper prices. Y'all might not have heard of them, but there is a company called Night Models, and they create similarly highly detailed miniatures with elaborate diorama bases, and they make models from an IP that is, to be honest, much more popular than the comparatively niche Horus Heresy. And that is Batman and DC Universe. Pretty big IPs. You might have heard of them. I thought the recent movie was good. And the models that they create for their more iconic characters, Superman, Wonder Woman, Joker, Ra's al Ghul, Two-Face, they all have big bases and really, honestly, beautiful sculpts. They are similar in size to the Primarchs, and they are made of resin as well. And of course, you only ever need one of these characters if you're playing the games. But where Night Models and Games Workshop differ is in the price. These models are $150. These models are $40. And to be honest, I think that $40 is too much. I think it's a bit much for a single character. If someone not involved in the miniatures hobby were to ask me how much this Joker model was, and I were to respond with, well, it's $40, then look at me like I'm the Joker, baby. But in this marketplace, apparently that's cheap. How the hell did we get here? This is like selling a resin model of Napoleon in his iconic pose atop his horse for like $100. It's not reasonable. It's not a reasonable price. And all because he's a recognizable name? Why did Games Workshop not see this as a problem? Why does no one else either? Why has there been no discussion about this? Look, we need plastic Primarchs, and we need them to be at least half the price that they are now. They are so far away from what is a reasonable cost. And it seems to me that the strategy that Games Workshop have taken with Horus Heresy, and I'd love to be wrong here, but it looks like they're trying to double down on their existing fans. They are happy with the size of their fan base that are willing to put up with these types of prices. Oh, I don't think that's a good idea. There are people right now who really enjoy the Horus Heresy books, absolutely love them. And actually, I get a lot of criticism from people like this all the time. They might say things like, I read all the books, I love Warhammer, I'm the biggest fan ever, but I can't afford the miniatures. That's fine. I just don't buy them. It's a luxury hobby. And my response to this is, you're kind of proving my point. This is like someone on death row saying that they love the death penalty. All the way up to the chair, they're screaming, I deserve this. These people are the biggest fans, and they can't afford the tabletop war game. I mean, they're defending prices that they themselves cannot afford. Why are Games Workshop not looking to convert them from simply buying books into buying in to their most profitable product? I mean, even from a cold analytical business perspective, this makes no sense to me. You've got fans, Games Workshop, their backs ache for the lash. Give it to them hard. Games Workshop are trying to push their niche product, Horus Heresy, into their mainline series of games. They need their big iconic models of that line to be affordable. Warhammer 40k is popular Kinda because it's popular. It's a self-perpetuating game at this stage. Anywhere you go, you know you can get a game of Warhammer 40k. That's why people buy into Warhammer 40k, even if they don't have a lot of interest in the setting. But Horus Heresy will have to be bought into. If it's to retain a healthy population of players, it's gonna need to convince people to buy in. Games Workshop need to build a player base. So let me be honest, I'm pretty nervous for Warhammer the Old World. I really want to enjoy that game, but this does not bode well for it. Imagine if you were a Total War Warhammer 2 player and you are used to downloadable content for your game at $10. Will you be happy to spend $150 on a Karl Franz model? I don't think so. These prices are too much. But hey, if you are excited for the old world as well, why not check out this video where I go over every single faction? And a big thanks to my patrons, especially Steven Jackson and Earthwormy. Thank you. And I'll catch you next time. Bye-bye. Until Games Workshop reverse this, Games Workshop Delenda est.